they want the government to control everything. I want pretty much the opposite. Like, let people decide for themselves. I don't believe politicians or bureaucrats have any divine powers to tell you how to live your life.
They've completely bought into this fear-mongering that the Conservative Party is going to ban abortions, that the Conservative Party is against LGBTQ. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you think people have about being conservative and being Canadian today?
They put in one positive thing out of a $500 billion budget that is impoverishing the nation. Obviously, we're not going to vote to impoverish the nation.
Mark Carney was asked by a reporter who said, and I quote,
"Well, it's a fact that he's lying."
It's a fact that Mark Carney's lying because I've been explicitly clear that that will not happen. They want the government to control everything. I want pretty much the opposite. Like, let people decide for themselves. I don't believe politicians or bureaucrats have any divine powers to tell you how to live your life.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, Ana and Pierre Poilievre. How are you guys doing today?
I'd say it's
We're
been an
good.
adventure, but
Yeah.
we're feeling good.
We're good.
We're energized. We got a week to go, so we're going to crank it out.
Okay.
Leave nothing on the table.
Well, let's get into some of the more pressing issues here that are on the minds of a lot of Canadians, and also Mark Carney, I would like to add. I was actually watching him live just the other day, and he had reiterated that the Conservatives, and more specifically you, Mr. Poilievre, are everyone for themselves, and that you are going to be cutting dental care, cutting pharmacare, cutting child care, the $10 a day program. So can you expand a little bit more on what the Conservative Party will be doing with these programs?
We're not going to be cutting back these programs because Canadians have suffered enough already. You've got, after 10 years of these guys, and that includes Mr. Carney. He was the economic advisor to Trudeau through half of it. Like, make no mistake about it. He was there. He supported every single Liberal policy. What do we have? We got housing costs that have doubled. We've got an entire generation of youth who can't afford homes. We're here in Toronto. It now takes 29 years for an average family to save up for a down payment. 2 million people lined up at a food bank. It's really been economic hell on earth. With Carney and the Liberals in power. Now, he released his platform, another $130 billion of spending above and beyond what Trudeau had already budgeted. And we just learned that, in fact, it wasn't his platform at all, it wasn't Carney's platform at all. It was actually written for Justin Trudeau and just handed over to the next leader. So you're going to get exactly the same thing from a fourth term that you got from the first three. We need a change. And only the Conservatives will provide that change so you can afford food and housing, change so you're safe on your street again.
It's kind of funny you bring up that plan. I recall not very long ago, Mr. Carney saying, well, it's different because I said it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, we have this news come out about the platform and how they basically just used some whiteout and put Mark Carney's name over top of things.
No, this is the kind of egomania that you get from Liberals. So if I said it, then it must be different. Like, it's like Pharaoh, let it be written, let it be done, At the end of the day, it's the same stuff, and if you want to change, we need to vote in a new government.
I will press just a little bit as well, because, there's critics of yours who will say that, well, the Conservatives voted against these programs. So can you elaborate on why the Conservatives voted against?
They're embedded in budgets that doubled our national debt and that drove up housing costs and inflation and forced people to food banks. And so they put in one positive thing out of a $500 billion budget that is impoverishing the nation. Obviously, we're not going to vote to impoverish the nation by backing the disastrous economic policies that got us into this mess. We really do need a change, and we can't go on like this. If they're reelected, they're campaigning on a pledge to add $250 billion to our debt, which is not an abstraction. It means that your food, your gas, your groceries, all going to go up with more inflation. And the crime is going to get worse in our streets. We need to fire these guys and bring in a new government. And we plan to cut bureaucracy. You want to know what we cut? We'll cut bureaucracy. I announced yesterday we're going to cut $10 billion in consultants. I'm going to cut foreign aid. We're going to get rid of a lot of the corporate welfare handouts that just go to insiders and foreign multinationals that take jobs out of our country. And we're going to use that money to get inflation, taxes, and debt down for a change.
And Anna, I'll ask you, because you've been following along on this campaign for years now. I've seen plenty of videos of your piggybacks also being carried.
That was actually right over here.
Yeah.
So our rally was just
whistle.
out there, was it? Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Right over here
Yeah,
somewhere,
not far from here.
But so what exactly is it, with all of the people who you've met along the campaign trail, coming from a mother as well as a woman and somebody who's been in the background behind the scenes of all of this, who's worked, alongside so many other people, what would your message be to that young family who is really feeling like, clearly they either, it's a young couple and they want to have a family, or it's a young family and they're struggling to try to figure out, if they can afford soccer practice this year. But also, having said that, they've kind of lost trust in the government as it is today. What would you say to them, to really kind of solidify how important it is to vote in this election?
I mean, it really comes down to, I don't want to sound like repetitive, but it comes down, if you don't go out there and you don't vote, there's going to be no change. I always go back, I introduce Spirit at the rallies, and I like to share my story from when I was 25 years old as a single woman. I was able to save $25,000 to put a down payment on a little tent house in the east end of Ottawa for $230,000. That was back in 2012. That was during the Harper era government when house was affordable, and I did that as a single woman. And that gave me a level of self-confidence, of independence as a woman. And that also allowed me to dream that, I'm ready, I have a house, I can own, I can start a family whenever I meet the right person. It gave me that level of confidence that right now it's not happening. And it's both self-inflicted with the policies of the Liberal government. So to believe that we cannot reverse this and go back to a more affordable life, it's not true. There is hope, but if you don't go out there, if you don't vote, then you need to give the Conservative government a chance so that we can reverse the policies, because we want to restore what I was able to do when I was 25. And for Pierre too, the Canadian promise, that's what we call it. And we can do it.
We'll talk a little bit more about some of the hopelessness that a lot of Canadians are facing, but I did also want to add to that. I'm a 28-year-old woman. It's something I often hear from friends of mine, as well as just in the comment sections on social media. People who are they've completely bought into this fear-mongering that the Conservative Party is going to ban abortions, that the Conservative Party is against LGBTQ2IA+ communities. I'll ask this to both of you. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you think people have about being conservative and being Canadian today?
Well, first of all, I want to bat those down very quickly. Where our policy in our platform since 2004 that was adopted by our members is that there will be no restrictions on a woman's choice in abortion. That's in our policy. It will be printed in my platform. I've made that comment countless times, and it just won't happen. So that's the first point. On people's sex lives, I'm not interested. If I were starting a political party from scratch, I would call it the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party. My goal is to basically let people make their own decisions. And whether it's about their love lives or about their wallets or their speech or what food they eat or car they drive, I don't want to be involved in any of those things. I'm not in this to run your life. I want to run a government that protects the borders, provides services people can't provide for themselves, and a military that keeps us safe and strong, an economy that grows so people have jobs. That's my job. And I'm not interested in running people's lives. That's ironically, it's the party that does want to run people's lives is the Liberal Party. They want like a gigantic octopus party, government that just has hands everywhere, running in your wallet, in your household, in the raising of your kids, in your internet feed. They want the government to control everything. I want pretty much the opposite. Like, let people decide for themselves. I don't believe politicians or bureaucrats have any divine powers to tell you how to live your life. In fact, to the contrary, when I walk around my riding and I talk to like plumbers and farmers and electricians and stuff, those people actually know more about the economy than most of the high-level bureaucrats and politicians I encounter. So everything I've experienced in life has taught me that politicians should just leave people the hell alone and to make their own decisions, to live their own lives, and to chart their own course.
I just want to jump in on this one because you said, you use the word misconception and you talk about women. Mm-hmm. And this one really, truly affects me because I'm a conservative woman. I'm proud. I'm strong. I'm an independent woman, independent thinker. I have no issues with that. And if you look at the people that Pierre surrounds himself with, our deputy leader, she's a woman. She's openly a member of the LGBTQ community. Our campaign manager, she's a strong woman. Everybody knows who she is. I'm here, right by Pierre's side. This started when Pierre became the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He asked me to introduce him. And I wasn't even sure that I wanted to do that. But he celebrated me and he just said, you're such a great speaker, you're part of this, and he put me out there. So as a conservative, my husband has been promoting women that deserve to be promoted, celebrating women that deserve it. Meanwhile, when you look at the Liberal Party, what they did to Jody Wilson-Rayl, Jane Philpott. So it really, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it really frustrates me that there's this misconception because at the end of the day, we believe in meritocracy, and that is the difference. So yes, we have women, he surrounds himself with women, but not because they're women. Yeah. It's because they're kick-ass and they're really good at what they do. And I mean, here I am, I'm a strong, independent woman, and my husband is not hiding me in a kitchen like people will think that that's what we stand for. And I'm a pro-choice, and I've made that clear too. And here I am, I'm a conservative.
I often say that when people ask me, you're so young, how are you conservative? And I'm like, well, it's this crazy thing. I realized that I could be kind and compassionate and want the best for absolutely everybody while still really caring about our economy and not wanting the government to be involved in every mundane decision of my day. So it's a pretty easy choice.
We want to be in control of our lives,
Of course.
And would you say that Canada is kinder and compassionate after 10 years of Liberals? Like, or that our government is more like, when you see the people who can't feed themselves, or the youth who can't afford homes, or the 25% of people living in poverty, that was never the case when we had a Conservative government. So I don't think there's anything kind and compassionate
like
about
I was able to be an independent financially woman by the fact that I owned my house at 25.
I couldn't do that at 25 under the Liberal government. So.
Or the vulnerable people who are getting attacked by criminals because the Liberals released them on the street. I don't think there's anything kind and compassionate about any of that. I'm not going to take any lectures from them on those things.
You know, speaking of lectures, I'm not quite sure if you caught this one today, but a little bit earlier, Mark Carney was asked by a reporter who said, and I quote, "You've accused Poilievre of wanting to use the notwithstanding clause to go after the right to abortion." Mark Carney said yes. And then the question continued and said, but Mr. Poilievre explicitly said that he wouldn't, so why this accusation today? And Mark Carney responded with, it's not an accusation, it's a fact. It's fact he wants to ignore the Constitution of our country.
Well, it's a fact that he's lying.
It's a fact that Mark Carney's lying because I've been explicitly clear that that will not happen. No such law will pass under my leadership. What I'm proposing to do is actually protect your constitutional rights under Section 7 to life, liberty, and security of the person. And that means that we need to lock up criminals. So he wants to talk about constitutional rights. I'm curious why Mark Carney is not interested in the constitutional rights of the First Nations people who were systematically murdered in Saskatchewan by Miles Sanderson, a guy who was out of jail after 60 prior convictions. And then he went in and murdered 6 Indigenous people on a killing spree. He's not interested in the rights of the people who are having their cars stolen by someone who's out on bail for the 150th time. He's not interested in the rights of the families whose kids have died of fentanyl overdoses. I'm interested in protecting their constitutional rights. And we will, when I'm Prime Minister, carry out the single biggest crackdown on crime in Canadian history, and I will use my constitutional powers and those of Parliament by invoking the notwithstanding clause to do that. We will lock up criminals, and this country will be safe for change. And by the way, these policies, they're not just allowed under the Constitution, they are required by the Constitution. So Mark Carney can continue letting criminals go free on the streets, but I think Canadians will vote to lock them up and bring safety to our people.
You know, it's been rather interesting to, I say this all the time, so this is a me quote, but the Liberals, in order to try to sway the public, they have to lie about the Conservatives, whereas the Conservatives just have to tell the truth.
Exactly.
And then the Liberals have to try to lie their way out of it. It really does appear to be the case these days. And on that note, to Ana, you know, there's been so much talk about how Pierre is a career politician, and that means that he's not qualified to do this. And so what are your thoughts on that very popular rhetoric of he's a career politician, he's never done anything, just politics?
Well, first of all, he's done a lot. He's been in this country, fighting for this country, fighting for everybody all along while Mr. Carney wasn't. Second of all, he has done all of the things that we need to get done right now. He has the experience in doing them, and that's the experience that we need right now. I mean, you can elaborate on this, but as a Minister of Housing,
Well, it was $450,000 to buy a house at the time. Mm-hmm. We built 200,000 homes that year, and you know, let's talk about the experience that he and I have both had over the last 5 years. He supported hiking the carbon tax. He was wrong. I supported axing it. I was right. He supported massive inflationary spending. In fact, he said inflation would be a, quote, good scenario for a country in 2021, June 3rd.
It's in a committee, it's in a finance committee where you're calling him out, you're predicting inflation.
And people are lined up at food banks because of that decision. My experience was saying, no, we're going to end up with an inflation crisis if we keep printing money. He opposed pipelines. He was wrong about that too, and I was right about it. And so I guess I would ask is if he has such great experience, then how is it that he keeps getting all of the important issues that affect people's lives so wrong? And if he's been so wrong for so long, how could he have the right experience to govern us in the future? I'm proud of my experience. I stood up for all the things that we agree we need to do now are the things I've been fighting for all along. So my experience is in doing what needs to be done.
I agree.
You know, one of the driving forces behind why I finally decided that I was going to start saying what I think came after losing my former boyfriend of 10 years to suicide. And the reason why I really started to talk about politics in particular, I've long been fascinated in politics, but I really started to recognize just such a huge correlation, especially in Canada, and the decline of people's mental health. And those rates as well, statistically in the country, predominantly are men. 75% of all deaths by that nature are men. And it really, you know, it's just so bizarre to me, the unnecessary suffering, the unnecessary cost, unaffordability, hopelessness, all of these things that the more I investigate into this, the more I really recognize that so much of it, it's coming from the top down. And while claiming to be helpful, but it's actually rather harmful. And so that's my passion and for why I love politics as much as I do and why I want change as much as I do. But to that, what exactly does recovery look like in Canada? You say frequently that we have we've lost a Liberal decade. So that means we have 10 years to catch up on. So what are we going to have to endure? What exactly does that look like? What's the time frame? All of those details.
Well, we basically have to reverse the entire Liberal drug policy. They caused this crisis through massive drug liberalization and subsidization of giving out drugs, decriminalizing possession, funding the problem rather than the solution. So I will cut off the so-called safe supply. This is taxpayer-funded opioids that actually get people addicted and keep them addicted. We will bring in life sentences for fentanyl traffickers who move more than 40 milligrams. That's enough to kill 20 people. Anyone who does that will go to jail for life. We'll secure the borders with scanners and watchtowers and 2,000 more CBSA officers to stop the drugs from coming in. But then treatment. We're going to have a treatment plan that will fund organizations that have a track record of delivering treatment. And it's going to be a new funding model. It's not going to be fill out a form, put in the right buzzwords, get the money. It's going to be, you have to attest to examples of where your organization has got people off drugs. And in the future, payments from the government will be based on confirmed cases of taking people on drugs and getting them off drugs. So those organizations that have the most success of turning lives around will get bigger and bigger budgets so that they can expand their services. I really think we're going to turn lives around. Like there's great organizations, like in your hometown, there's the Oak Foundation.
Fantastic, and they also have one for women as well that has childcare and everything.
Right.
It's just incredible.
It is, and they have counseling, group therapy, physical exercise. They have a big gymnasium for sporting events, nice jerseys that once you graduate, you get a jersey hung with your name and your number on it. And people come out of there and they're incredible. You know, they have a superpower then. When I met with a lot of the people who are going through the program in Moncton at Harvest House, I said to these young men, I need a favor from you. I need you to get it clean. And then you're going to go to the street and you're going to grab someone off a street corner and you're going to bring them here and then you're going to turn their life around. And then the next, they're going to go out and they're going to do that again. And we're going to keep paying it forward until we defeat this monster.
The Liberals, NDP, and also Greens have consistently for years now, but they've really ramped it up lately, it seems, created a lot of fear around freedom of speech and fear around not agreeing with what it is that they're saying, you know, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what do you have planned, or what can you guarantee Canadians at least when it comes to government overreach and making sure that that is a censorship and all of those things where we can have free discussions exactly like this, that's not on the table with you guys?
We're going to repeal the censorship law, C11,
C18.
C18.
Oh, I can't wait to see news again on Facebook.
Yeah, you'll be able to watch news again. I think we're one of, us and North Korea might be the only countries where you can't actually get news on Facebook. This crazy online harms bill that they want to basically be able to preemptively put people under house arrest if there's a suspicion that in the future they might say something harmful, like. It's as though it's like they read 1984 as though it were an instruction manual rather than a dystopic novel. But we're going to repeal the entire censorship regime. We need more voices. You know, the Liberals claim they're doing all this because they want to protect media. Well, actually, the way you protect media is by giving freedom of expression. And then, like yourself, you compete for eyeballs and eardrums, and people go where they feel they're getting the best information. So freedom of speech is the most powerful force for human progress, and I want to expand it. We should be the freest country on earth, and that's what I want to achieve.
Last one here, actually second last one. First and foremost, Mr. Poilievre, we've been talking a lot about you right now, but Ana, on top of Canada wanting to make sure that Pierre Poilievre is held to account, are you ever going to hold him accountable for not learning Spanish yet?
Well, I actually kind of like that he doesn't.
You can talk behind his back.
The kids and I want to, yeah.
That's funny. The kids speak. Our little boy speaks a little bit of Spanish.
Yeah, he does.
And he speaks French. We wanted to gel that before he gets into the English, because you catch English like a cold. They'll learn that. But it's going to be a great tool for them to be able to speak Spanish.
I think he will one day, but I don't think, let's agree right now, it's not the time. He has lots on his plate.
Too much,
let's
too
agree.
much. So last question here. What exactly would you say to the single parents, the working class Canadians, and also people on disability who feel very left behind right now? What is your message of hope to them?
Well, things are going to change. One of the things I want to work on when we take office is a lot of it is provincial, but we need to get rid of these clawbacks for people on disability who are hoping to get some work. Like a lot of people on disability do work, but then they get huge clawbacks and they even lose their medical coverage, their medication. This is a real problem. We need to reward people who overcome challenges to work, and we also need to protect the vulnerable against physical danger. People with disabilities are disproportionately victims of crime, and we're going to end the crime so that people can feel safe again in our communities. And those are among the things we're going to be doing to make this a more inclusive place for people overcoming disabilities.
Which is why it is so important to cast your vote this election. There's only a few days left.
Absolutely. It's a few days to go, so if you want to change, you got to vote for change. It won't just fall out of the sky. And we are the masters of our own destiny in this country. So,
wonderful. Well, thank you both so very much.
thank you, and good
Thank
luck with
you.
your podcast. I enjoy it. It does pop a lot on my feed, and we're very excited to see what more great conversations you'll bring forward.
Thank you.
All right,
Nice
let's bring
to
it
see a
home.
woman too leading in the podcast industry.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank
Get out
you.
and vote. We don't let her to be censored by the government. So vote to keep her online.
Yes.
I second that.
All right.
Thank you.